Welcome back to Dolor Factor Live. If you have a question that you would like to ask us, or if you'd like to share your experiences, then you can always email us. You know how to get through to us. And after this segment, we will actually open the phone lines to take your calls. Our guests tonight are Glen Wilson of St. John Ambulance. Well, it's St. John, you said, right?
Yeah.
It's now St. John. Okay, and Dawn French of NEMO. Now, we spoke earlier on about mass emergencies. But also, we want to know if you are in the crowd.
Could I, Julia?
Yes.
It's mass casualty.
Mass casualty. Thank you very much. Mass casualty. Now, when you're in a crowd, and I'm directing this primarily to you, Glen, what is it that we should be looking out for? Or perhaps sometimes, I know if I'm in a crowd, sometimes I feel giddy. I don't know if that happens to anyone else. But depending on the humidity, why are you laughing?
The humidity. If you're drunk, I was like,
Yeah,
I feel, and I suffer with migraines. So sometimes I know, I can feel when the migraine is coming, but sometimes I just feel like things are just slowly moving. What should I do?
Usually, if in a situation and you begin to feel, well, then not well, one of the first things you'd probably want to do is to try to alert someone else of your situation and try to get some form of assistance. In a situation where you're probably feeling lightheaded, one of the situations could be is that there's insufficient oxygen going to the brain. And when that happens, one of the things you'd like to do is to probably sit down as quickly as possible, because if you lose consciousness, then if you fall, then you might be causing more damage. And so trying to get the attention of someone else as quickly as possible is one of the things you'd want to do as quickly as possible.
Well, you know, I was always told that if you feel giddy or drowsy or anything like that, the first thing that you have to do is actually put your head between your legs.
But he told you sit.
No, but that's different. No, that's different. If you sit and if you actually bend, that means my head isn't going to be in a completely different situation.
And here's the reason for this.
Is that right, though, to put my
is.
head between my legs?
It is.
Okay.
Actually, and the reason for that is that by lowering your head between your legs, you're causing the brain is then lower than the heart's level. So therefore, you're causing oxygen to go into the brain much quicker. I remember sometimes when I do training, a lot of people come up with really funny and out of the way ideas. And when we tell them to lower their heads between their legs, I've heard of some really out of this world situations that why is it I'm doing it. In our society, we have a lot of home type of remedies for situations. So you find that elder folks would probably say, if you're feeling giddy, that you should pass your hand under your arm and inhale that. Yes? I've heard that over and over when we do first aid. Actually, what that does is that it tickles your mucous membrane.
Okay.
But the situation is your brain does not need a jolt. It needs oxygen. And how you can get oxygen to the brain quickly is by lowering it below the level of the heart.
I'm laughing because I'm just thinking, what a way to have a jolt. You're assuming then your perspiration stinks.
I get that a lot.
So that would just...
I mean, they're ridiculous ones.
The version of smelling salts.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And persons think of, well, then I lower my head because I want to smell myself or something of that sort. And I think, no, you're going way too far with this now. Yeah, so I think a lot of the local type of things that we grew up with are being passed down. I do not doubt home remedies, but when it comes to first aid, I always tell my trainees they are not first aid procedures. A typical situation is tying grated nutmeg to your forehead because you have a headache. But then the situation, yes, we put lime alcohol or rubbing alcohol or alcohol or tight on there.
I have to ask this. What about cloves in your cavities?
They do the extract the oil from the cloves. It numbs, so it causes the numbness. So therefore, that works for.
It hurts. Okay,
yes.
My grandmother used to swear by it. She's laughing.
Yes, it does.
Swear by it.
It numbs the area, so therefore the pain. It tends to think that it's gone away.
So we can delay the dentist for a little while.
Yes, for a little while.
Okay. But how would you know that? Again, I'm going back to the crowd situation. I don't want to say it's more than likely that I'm dehydrated, but how would you know that you are dehydrated versus you're really not well?
In responding to an emergency, one of the things as a first aider, that in order to respond to a situation, because we're not doctors, we cannot diagnose a casualty. So therefore, we respond to the signs, the things that we can see about the casualty. So you'd see the skin color, they may be sweating, the skin, they may be shivering. And when you feel them, they might be cold. or you respond to the symptoms, which would be what the casualty tells you that they're feeling. So I feel this pain in my tummy. I feel a weakness in my arm. I am unable to feel this the left side of my face. And so as a first aider, those are the things that you're responding to. Many times, especially in our culture, two of the situations that you in talking to persons in communities, that they tend to refer to always interchangeably, strokes and a heart attack or cardiac emergencies. And you normally find persons who try to diagnose a casualty say the person is having a stroke or the person is having a heart attack. It could be one or the other. And the reason for that is that in many illnesses, the signs and the symptoms are similar. So therefore, you're unable to diagnose a casualty. Even more so if you take the casualty to get medical attention, before the doctor can pronounce that this is what the situation is, they have to do a number of tests to verify, well then yes, the person is actually having a stroke versus having a heart attack and so forth.
Yeah, this is why when you see at the really big events, jazz and cricket, you have the Red Cross and St. John prowling through the spectators. They're really looking to spot all what Glen is just, because as you very well point out, you don't know what's happening to you. You're just not feeling well. And it could be something very light that you just need a bottle of water. It could be very serious that you maybe need glucose. And so the Red Cross and St. John's at these events, they walk around with radios. And if it's really serious, they actually bring the medical team to the person. And most times it's there to catch someone, identify them, and bring them into the medical unit.
Okay, but going back to what I asked, how would I know that I am dehydrated? How would I know?
Dehydration, I mean, some of the signs would be the dry mouth. However, again, it can be mistaken. For example, one of the things that is very apparent when you have a casualty, and a casualty is someone who suddenly becomes sick or is suffering from an injury. One of the situations that is very apparent is shock. And the shock we're referring to is not when somebody should creep up behind you and scare you, and you say you're shocked, or if you got electrocuted. The shock we're referring to is when your circulatory system is failing because of lack of oxygen, and your vital organs will begin to shut down. So your vital organs are your brain, your heart, and your lungs. In that situation, one of the very apparent symptoms are, one of the very apparent one is thirst, a dry mouth. Your casualty say to you, I'm thirsty, I need water to drink. Now, it is not because that the casualty is thirsty, it's actually because the brain does not have sufficient oxygen, it is sending wrong signals all over your body. So therefore, it will tell the mouth that you're thirsty. Now, if you administer fluids, it's just going to make the situation worse. For example, persons who are actually dehydrated, for example, you've had a diarrhea for a very long time, or you've been vomiting over a long period of time, you're losing electrolytes very quickly. And so therefore, shock will be very apparent in a situation like that. And you will feel thirsty, but you're not actually thirsty. So in response to that situation, one of the things you want to do is to just dampen the casualty's mouth or lips with water. But you don't want to administer the fluid because it's only going to make the situation worse.
I'm sure a lot of people did not know that.
And it happens in our culture. A lot of the times, persons want to give the casualty water and not recognizing that you're actually making the situation worse than what it is.
Okay. All right. Now, what do you think we should be looking out for? I'm with my friends. What should I be looking out for in case someone falls sick? Oh, here's another question. What if somebody trips on something and they've, like, sometimes, you bust a lip or something like that. How do you determine, well, you know what, it's okay for me just to rinse my mouth, I'm okay, or no, this is really bad, I really need to leave and get it seen to?
Again, some of the important things you want to pay attention to are the signs and symptoms. When you do first aid, generally there are 3 critical situations that you need to look for. They are considered to be life-threatening situations. The first one being if your casualty has a blocked airway, the second being if your casualty is not breathing, and the third one being if your casualty has severe bleeding. From these situations, your casualty may die quicker. So these are considered to be life-threatening situations. And to detect these, when you do first aid, you do what is called a primary survey. And your primary survey is trying to help you to determine, is my casualty in a life-threatening situation? And once you've eliminated the A, B, and C, the blocked airway, not breathing, and severe bleeding, then it means that your casualty has secondary situations. So I've heard, for example, many times in training, many persons, they would hear that if you have a casualty of a broken rib, and it's like, person will die. But it's only a broken bone, that's what it is. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so you will not die from a broken rib. But many persons tend to relate that if your casualty has a broken rib, it's like, okay, I need to get you out quickly because I'm fearful that you will die from the situation. But the 3 life-threatening situations that you want to look out for are the blocked airway, not breathing, and severe bleeding.
Okay. Now, very quickly, maybe I'll ask the question and you can answer me after the break. We hear a lot, if someone has fallen down and it appears that they've broken something, that we mustn't move them. So when we come back from the break, I'd like you to answer that, because some people say, yes, you must get them comfortable. Some people say you must put them in a certain position, and some people say you mustn't touch them at all. So we'd like to get the answers to that. You're watching Dolor Factor Live. Of course, this is DBS. And you know that you have our giveaways. You can check the dolorfactorlive.com for the questions, and we'll be stopping those at 9:30, okay? So when we come back, we're actually going to open the phone lines a little earlier for you, so to give you an opportunity to get through to speak to either Glen or Dawn if there's any particular question that you would like to ask them. So stay with us. We'll be right back.